Good morning, readers. For this morning, we'll be reading I Survived Hurricane Katrina, Chapter 15. So if you could please set up your notebook now. You can set up your notebook if you have it with two Stop and Jots. You can do it on paper, or you can do it on Seesaw. I am seeing if you are able to, please take a picture of your Stop and Jots in your notebook or on paper. Take a picture and upload it on your Seesaw so I can check out your thoughts about reading, including responding to you and using them in future read alouds for us. So please take a moment now to set up your Stop and Jots for our read aloud today in one of those places, keeping in mind to add in the sentence starters we've been using in class. I've uploaded the anchor chart we use in class on Seesaw as well, but thinking about how we're using more complex thought prompts to grow our thinking and really create deeper ideas about characters in the second half of the school year, using words like I realized, remember earlier in the story, maybe. I'm kind of moving on from, we're still able to use I noticed and I wonder at times, but trying to move on from that as we are trying to create thought prompts that will create deeper thoughts about reading. So I'll give you a moment to set yourselves up. As you remember from yesterday, we met kind of like this fairy godmother. She was not a fairy godmother, but she kind of seemed to come out of nowhere, and her name was Nell, Nell. So if you're keeping a character tracker or a character corner like I've taught you about, that's where you could record her, but her name was Nell. And the author really took a lot of time to introduce this character in a way that really appeared comforting, kind of like she came out of nowhere and appeared to come and save Barry. So she was a great character to meet. In addition, we saw that once Barry was saved by Nell in the raft and she took him to a bridge, he was sure when he got there he would see police and doctors and cots and food and water. When he got there, that was not available for him. So as a reader, we have to stop and use a strategy of figuring out confusing parts. So this was confusing for us because we thought that Barry would have everything he needs once he got there. That was not the case. If you attempted to answer this question yesterday, you might have written something about the fact that Hurricane Katrina was such a massive hurricane that it wasn't possible that every rescue station had everything that Barry listed would be there. And that is a good example with Hurricane Katrina, that it was so massive that not everything could be available. And so we have to think about, even though Barry was saved to this moment, he's still not really at ease, because when he gets there, think about it, like he hasn't slept in a bed, he's been sleeping on roofs, not probably really sleeping, hasn't really eaten, hasn't had water a lot. So the disappointment he felt when he got there and the confusion. Before today, we'll be reading our second to last chapter of I Survived Hurricane Katrina, Chapter 15. We start right off the bat with Nell. Nell eased the boat onto the ramp that led to the bridge. Part of the bridge was underwater, but the middle part was high enough that it had stayed dry. Nell switched off the engine. You'll be okay here, she said. They're bringing people to the Superdome. Someone will help you there. Barry wanted to believe her, but he knew that even before the storm hit, there had been huge crowds and not enough food or water. What would it be like now? And besides, they wouldn't let him in with crews. We know that from earlier in the story. Barry's fear started to boil up again. A man came running over. Pardon me, he said to Nell, breathing hard. I'm trying to find my grandmother. She's out there, all alone, up on a roof. I need to get to her. I'll take you, Nell said. The man nodded, wiping away a tear. Thank you, he whispered. Thank you. Barry knew he had to get off the boat. Nell had other people to help, like she had helped him. Nell leaned over and put her hand under Barry's chin, lifting his face so he had to look at her. She didn't say anything for a moment. She just looked into his eyes and saw something there worth looking at. In this moment here, the author actually took 2 paragraphs to describe characters' actions. If the author is taking that much time to describe character actions, we know there's something we should be taking away from it. So I'm going to give you a moment to stop and think, why would the author have described the character actions of Nell and Barry in this case? Some of you might be deciding to stop and jot about this as well. You're strong, she said, no doubt in her voice. Barry didn't feel strong. His whole body shook as he got off the boat. Cruz followed him. They stood up on the ramp and watched as the man pushed the boat into the deeper water. He climbed in beside Nell. Nell nodded at Barry, and he suddenly had the idea he'd never see her again. Wow, she's such an important character, and she's in and out in less than 2 chapters. She powered up her engine, and the boat pulled away. As Barry watched Nell disappear, her words echoed through his mind. "You're strong. You're strong." And soon it wasn't Nell's voice he was hearing in his mind. It was his own voice. "I am strong. I am strong." I want you to think about what Barry's doing right now. That times in our own life when we're worried or embarrassed or scared or lonely. But thinking about those times, how actually the way we talk to ourselves is really important. And sometimes we're inspired by other people. This was a moment where Barry said earlier, the author included that he didn't feel strong, but he's choosing to use the phrases, "I am strong," to use that positive self-talk to help him. This is positive affirmation, which is something that we can use in our own lives, not just characters in books. Was he? He was scared. He was standing there crying, his legs quivering like skinny little twigs in the wind. But did that mean he wasn't strong? Barry thought about what had happened to him, how he'd been swept off the roof and carried away, how he grabbed hold of the tree and climbed up, how he held on tightly against the wind and the rain, how he saved Cruz, how they made their way through the wreckage to the tiny dry patch of roof. He felt scared the entire time. But here he was, standing on ground, in one piece. I'm going to reread that paragraph because it actually goes through a lot of important events in the story and almost a summary of what Barry went through once he had lost his family. So I'm going to start at that paragraph and read on through. I want you to kind of use this moment to be able to summarize the different steps that have happened in the story so far. Thinking first, next, then last. Barry thought about what had happened to him, how he'd been swept off the roof and carried away, how he grabbed hold of the tree and climbed up, how he held on tightly against the wind and the rain, and how he saved Cruz. How'd they make their way through the wreckage to that tiny, dry patch of roof? And remember, that's where Nell had found them. He felt scared the entire time. But here he was standing on dry ground in one piece. He looked up, and there was a huge bright star. Barry's star. And right then, he knew that no matter how scared he felt, he'd find his way. We see the mood changing. Or someone would find him. An hour passed, and Barry heard a familiar voice. "Barry! Barry!" And then other voices calling his name together, like a song. Dad reached him first, then Mom and Cleo. Their arms wrapped around Barry, and they stood there together for a long time. The 4 Tuckers and Cruz, a tiny island in a huge sea. And that is the end of chapter 15. What a good moment we've had in this book. We don't have as many good moments in this book. I feel like a lot of them end on cliffhangers that make us worried or scared for Barry, Cruz, or his family. So I'm happy as a reader the author included that moment. We do have to stop and think about what is going to happen in this final chapter here. What will that look like for Barry? What did the author still feel like we needed to learn about? So in this moment, I would like you to stop and jot or stop and think, what do you think will occur in the final chapter? Or what do you think are the loose ends in this chapter? And readers use that term a lot, loose ends, talking about, thinking about the several problems in a book that we know all characters have problems and obstacles. How might those be dealt with by the author in the end of our story? So thinking about what will occur in the final chapter. But I'm glad we got to read a great chapter here together today, and I'm excited to finish this book with you tomorrow. So at this time, your stop and jots would be completed. I would like to see them either uploaded with a picture, or feel free to write them on your Seesaw as well so I can check them out. Thanks, readers, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.